Alright guys, welcome back to the Unit 0 lecture. So unfortunately the other video that I recorded previously was it was screwed up because I was recording the wrong screen. But unfortunately for you guys, I will be creating another video in which I will show how to create the table view so that it's easier for you guys to set up. So we're going to go ahead into Xcode, and I just opened it right now, and we're going to go ahead and create a new Xcode project. So we're going to create a single view app, and we're going to call it the TableView practice. And after that, I'm just going to save it into one of my folders where I want to save my project. There we go. So now let's go ahead and I wrote down some steps for you guys to work on. So you guys, it'll be easier for you to understand what's going on. So the first step is going to add a table view to the storyboard. So we're on the first step right now. So let's go ahead and create a table view in our storyboard. So we're going to go into our storyboard, and we're going to add a table view. So here's one of the second option. Make sure you don't select the TableView controller. So now we're just going to add that fit to our screen. Awesome. So we're going to make this fit our screen. Great. So now that we have that, let's go ahead into step 2. Connect the table view to the ViewController. So we're going to need to add the subclass and add it to the ViewDidLoad. Okay, sounds pretty simple. So let's go to our ViewController. So, oh my bad, I forgot to show you how to do this. So if you go on the ViewController, click here, and then go into the Assistant Editor, and you can just click on it, and it'll pop up your ViewController. Now I'll make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see. And now we're going to add the table view here. So to make it easier, I'll just click on the table view here, and we're going to go ahead and drag it over here to our ViewController class and create an outlet. And we're just going to call it TableView. So now that we have that, we're going to go into our ViewDidLoad file function, and we're going to add the functionality that tells our ViewController that the ViewController is in charge of the table view. So in order to do that, we're going to set the table view delegate. We're going to delegate it to the ViewController. And self refers to ViewController. So in other words, the table view delegation is going to be set to the ViewController. So now the ViewController is going to be in charge of the work that the table view does. We're going to do the same for the data source. So now that we have both functions there, I'm going to go ahead and add the subclasses to the ViewController so that Xcode can tell it that it's going to be modifying a table view. So in order to do that, I'm just going to add comma and then start adding the subclass of UI TableView data source and UI TableView delegate, the second option. Perfect. So now that we have those, we can go ahead and there we go. So now it's going to give us an error saying that we need to fix it doesn't follow the protocols. So for that, we're just going to go up here and click fix, and it'll add you the basic functionality so that it can the ViewController is adhering to the protocol of table views, which we will get into in a later topic. So I'm just going to put these at the bottom so that it's more organized, because that's just usually how we do it. So now we need to add our cells. That's the third step. We're going to add our cells and the cell attributes, in which in this case we're going to be creating a table with a list of students that will pop up. So let's go ahead and go back to our storyboard, and let's create a new cell for our table view. So we're going to go ahead in the library of functionalities, and we're going to add the TableView table cell. TableView cell. So we're just gonna drag and drop it over here. Perfect. So now we can go ahead and add a label, so a UI label, and there we go. I'm just gonna put it right here in the middle, and this is gonna be recognized as student name label. Student name. Now we're gonna need to create a class for the cell, and we're gonna call it student cell. So we already finished step 3. Now we're gonna go into step 4, which is connect the cell to student cell class. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to create our class file, and we're gonna go here to our TableView practice folder. We're gonna go ahead and create a new file, and click on CodePath class. And here, make sure that you have a UI TableView cell. If you don't have it, you can just click on the little arrow, and it'll display all the options that you have. Or if you want, you can just type UI TableView cell. There we go. And here we're going to call this, the class is going to be called student cell. And we're just creating it. Perfect. So let's go back to our storyboard. So in order to, so we have a file which is a student cell. Now we just need to connect what the cell is going to have in it. In this case, it has a label. So in order to do that, we first have to connect the file with the TableView cell attribute right here. So in order to do that, now we're just going to simply go to we're going to click on a table cell, and then we're going to go to the attribute selector and click on show the identity inspector. And here we're going to have the class. For that, we're going to type in the student cell. And we're going to go ahead into the attribute inspector and go into this part. This is called the attribute inspector, which is right next to the identity inspector. For the identifier section, you're going to call it the same as your class for the sake of ease of access. It's more easy to remember because obviously you named it the same as your class. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that you have, for your identity inspector, you have the class set to student cell, and for the identifier, student cell. Now for the class, make sure that it autofills, because that tells you that this file for the student cell it follows the protocol of a UI TableView cell. If it doesn't, it would not autofill by itself here. So for example, if I type something else, there's no autofill because there's no such file. But if I type student cell, it would, because it follows the protocols. But if I type ViewController, it doesn't do it, because ViewController is a UI ViewController class. It's not a cell class. So go ahead and leave that into student cell. Now we're going to click on the student cell. We're going to open up the assistant editor. And then here, instead of clicking here on automatic, we're going to go to manual. And we're going to go to TableView practice, and then TableView practice folder, and then here you're going to see the student cell file. You can click there. And now we have the student cell file up here on our assistant editor. There's another way you can do that, way easier way, and you can do that by simply holding on to the Alt or Option key on your MacBook keyboard. I do not know on what key it would be on the Windows, but it's one of those at the bottom of your keyboard. You hold it and then you click on the file, and there you go. So now that we have the file open up, now we're going to set the label to the student cell. We're going to hold Control, and you're going to click and drag to the student cell. Let go of it, and then you're just gonna, for the outlet, you're just gonna call it whatever you want. In this case, I'm gonna put student name label. Perfect. So now that we have everything set up, let's go into our fourth step. So let's go back, and we see that we did step number 4, which is connect the cell to student cell class, and by adding the identifier and setting the class to student cell. And then from there on, we connected attributes. In this case, it was the labels or images, etc. to student cell class. Perfect. So now we're on step 5, which is add the functionality and refresh table. So we're going to go ahead and in order to do that, we're going to have to create the data, which in this case is going to be an array, and we're going to add that data to the functions of the table. Perfect. So let's go back to our normal file, the ViewController, and in our ViewController, we're going to create a variable, and I'm going to call it let students equal an array. It's going to be type string, and we're going to set that equal to set an array of names. In this case, it's going to be Memo, Anthony, David, John, Donald. Perfect. That's good enough for now. So now we're going to go ahead and go into our table view functionality, and we're going to set the number of rows in section equal to the number of students that are in this array. And in order to do that, you simply return the students.count. This is going to give you the amount of items that are in this array. Perfect. And in this section, we're going to modify what each cell is going to contain. In this case, each cell is going to contain each name of the student. So by doing that, we first need to create our cell, which you type it by let cell equal to TableView dot DQ reusable cell with identifier. It's the first option. And for the string, you're going to set it equal to the identifier of your cell. In this case, we set the identifier to student cell. Make sure that this matches what you have on your student cell. I'm going to show you how. So you go on your student cell here, you click on the attributes inspector, and you're going to see here identifier equal to student cell. So we made sure student cell is the same indeed as student cell. Perfect. So now we're going to get the name of each student. In this case, student is going to be equal to students index path dot row. This is accessing the specific each student of the array. In this case, when we set the first cell is going to be equal to index 0. So when it goes through the students at index 0, it's going to return me memo, and so on until it reaches the end of the count of students, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we count from 0, so in this case it would be 4. Perfect. So now that we have the name of the student, we need to set the label of this cell equal to the name that we set it equal to. In this case, we would just call the cell. Oh, and I forgot one thing. Here you have to set the cell as a student cell. Perfect. And now we can call the cell, and we can go to its attributes, and we can see that on the student cell we have a variable. It's a weak variable, an outlet called student name label. This is what we want to edit. That label represents this label right here. So we're going to have to change that label. In order to do that, we go back to our ViewController and call the cell dot, and then the student name label, which is the outlet that we created for the cell, dot text, and we set that equal to student. Perfect. So now we can just do Command B, and after you're done, you return the cell. So now that we have everything completed, our last step is, which is very important. Oh, shoot. The last step is to refresh the table. I cannot emphasize how important that is because I forgot that in class. And in order to do that, you can simply go back to your view.load function and you can call it TableView.reloadData. Perfect. So now we can Command R our project, or if you want, you can click here on the top corner, and we can see how our app will be alive. Still loading. There we go. And as we can see, still running. There we go. We just have a couple issues with going on with the labels, but let me fix that. So what you can do is you can set the cell, the height of the cell, be custom, and what you can also do is you can give it a constraint to the bottom one equal to 16, and make sure that you set it, you click on the label and you go to the metrics inspector or the size inspector, and you can see this attribute that we added. Or you can also access it by clicking on the label and this line right here. You'll see it line up blue. And you set it greater than or equal to. Or in this case, don't do anything. Let me just put it on the top of the cell. Let's see if this works. Perfect. As you can see, we have our list of people here listed. Looking good. Awesome. As you can see, there's a little white space in here, but that's because I was viewing it as an iPhone XS instead of an XR, but you can just increase the size of this. There we go. And there you have it. Perfect. Hope this will help you guys start off next week, and see you next week.